They tried to measure us by time, by place, by what already passed. But the Raiders were never history. They were built for what comes next. A man once said, the greatness of the Raiders is in its future. The shield was forged in commitment to excellence. No shortcuts, no explanations, only standards. Silver, black, forever. Just win, baby. Not pretty. Not easy. Just win. Once you wear the shield, you never take it off. Once a Raider, always a Raider. From Oakland to Los Angeles to Las Vegas, the torch never dimmed, the fire never left. This is pride and poise.
What's good, Raider Nation? Part of my Raider Nation Show Me the Shield family. Coming at you live with a little solo action here. Not going to be completely solo. Just kicking it off this morning. Kind of an idea that I had going this last week to kind of throw something out there for you where it's just my ugly mug on my camera, and we could chop it up a little bit, get a good conversation going. One of the things that I want to drive home with you is a lot of times we speak about our Raiders and we talk about our Raiders, and not all of us know everything. We don't. And then you get some people that come in and they have, well, I got this credential, or I got that credential, or I could do this, or I can say, okay, stop with that. Okay. Because really, even the experts know more than what we know. Okay. So having said that, anytime that I discuss things, a lot of it is because of based off of my personal experience of what I've seen throughout the years and how emotional, and I try not to get emotionally driven into being a Raider fan, but at the same time, I got to be a realist. Okay. So, having said that, we're going to have a lot of fun with this podcast. Okay. Trust me, we're going to have a lot of fun. But first, before I clicking off a little bit more here with the rest of what we got going on, I give a little shout out to James Furpo. James Furpo's in the house. You always know that you get this, my friend.
Raiders!
Right on, right on, right on. I got Robert P in the house. Jack, thanks for coming in, brother. One of my loyalists, I guess you can say, loyal people. Robert Pena in the house as well. Robert, thank you for coming in, my friend. Looks like we're clicking the button too many times. Be patient with me. I'm not bueno. My guy, thanks for coming in. James Furpo's still hitting them Raiders, man. I'm telling you, it's exciting news what we get today. Don't get me wrong. It's exciting news. You have to be. You have to be excited about what we're hearing coming out of all the experts, what they're saying. That we have Gary Kubiak. Okay? But they throw that little caveat in there is that they have their eye on Gary Kubiak, and it's to be determined that he should be the next head coach of the Raiders. Okay? It's much farther than what we were a week ago, right? It's much farther than what we were a week ago and what we were 4 months ago, really, if you think about it. Go back to the Pete Carroll stint that we were trolling through in the mud with. But it's good, and I like it. But we also have to We have to be realists, okay? So until that press conference happens and he's announced and the whistle's handed to him, where they say you are now the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, we got to kind of just it's still wait and see pattern, guys. I'm sorry, but I mean, let's be careful because I don't know if many of you remember in 2004 we had hired Sean Payton. It was like a pinky swear hire, but we had him. And then all of a sudden, a phone call from Bill Parcells happens, and what do you know? He is no longer our head coach. He decides at the last minute, you know what? I think I'm going to stay in Dallas and work on my uh, expertise a little bit more as an offensive coordinator, gather some more, get some more tools in the toolbox before I decide. Which is actually more than what was actually presented to him. It was he wanted to be a head coach. The opportunity was there. He was given the opportunity to interview. He was going to get hired, but I think he also saw the writing on the wall because that 2004 was the coming of the end of where we are today because Coach Davis did everything he could to bring a championship to Oakland in the early 2000s, but it was just not. It we just almost got there, but we sold our soul to the devil to get that team. And what I mean by selling our soul to the devil is we gave a lot of signing bonuses to some key veterans to come in and wear the silver and black to help us get that championship. Don't get me wrong, man. It was a lot of fun. I was in that stadium rocking it out. It was great. But after we got done, after Rich Gannon got hurt his neck that night, I looked at my friend and I told him, I said, this franchise is doomed for the next 4 to 5 years. And then here comes Jamarcus Russell. Boom. He dooms us again. And then we get the Carson Palmer trade. Boom. That sets us back even farther. Then we get the email scandal that comes out. Boom. That sets us back again. So at some point, we're going to get traction on this and it's going to take off. I'd like to put my faith into Gary Kubiak or Clint Kubiak. I want to put my faith into him, and right now I have a lot of faith in him because he's got the credentials of what it takes to at least make our offense something we can be proud of. Because y'all know what we saw last year. That was embarrassing. There were kids in Pop Warner that said I can play offense better than that. So as we dive into this a little bit more, I want to just kind of remind everybody. I'm going to go over the Kubiak tree, I guess you can say, is what we're looking at here. And I know I said in a podcast that I've been on before that be real careful of what you wish for because the Kubiak hatred for the Raiders, that was real, guys. That was real. I was a Raider fan in 1990, 91, 92, 93 after Mike Shanahan got fired. And any and everybody that had any connection with Mike Shanahan, they did not like the Raiders. They would do anything to put not just bury the Raiders, but bury them under the stadium. You know, anything from having a Monday night game where you cheat by. Now that I don't think they grease the balls, but I know Mike Shanahan overinflated the balls, and if you go watch watch that and how nobody on the Raiders could catch the balls because they were just slipping through their hands constantly, and the players were coming off on the sideline and says, "Hey, there's something on the ball." Because back then the home team was responsible for providing the footballs. So we talk about Deflategate. I bet you if you dug into that a little bit, you'd have something similar to Deflategate because Mike Shanahan was like that. He didn't care. He would beat Al Davis at any cost. And you bring Gary Kubiak in, and the same thing. Now, this is where I'm going to sidetrack for just a second. Is you have that relationship with Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, his sons, them boys that grew up in football. and how they've been. You have that, okay, but you also have Gary Kubiak's relationship with John Spytek, who is now our GM, okay, and Mark Davis isn't Al Davis when it comes to relationships. Mark Davis is way more approachable than Al Davis was. Al Davis, he kept his circle tight, and he was. For those of you that are political, I'm not gonna lie, he was a lot like Donald Trump. If he liked you, he loved you. If he hated you, you were the devil. And he didn't like Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan didn't like him, and it was all about that hatred. That hatred was really the Hatfields and the McCoys of that era in the NFL, bar none. And it hurt us more as a Raiders team than it did the Broncos. So if any of you guys have any that are in a chat, I got there's 8 people viewing, and I know there's more. There could be more out there. I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. So hopefully we get the numbers up there. If you like what I provide for you, which is common sense, no nonsense takes of the Raiders, and being real, because I mean, let's face it, a lot of us grew up with this organization, and it was just our passion over and over and over again. Here's some more housekeeping tips for you, and as you go along, and we do this, and we build our relationships as we go forward with this podcast. Is I'm not an expert in X's and O's. I'm not. Okay. But I've seen enough, and I've done enough, and I learned enough. Specifically, when I sat in section 206 of the Oakland Coliseum, right behind me were a couple guys that were college coaches. And they taught me a lot about, they would show me, because we had the end zone view, which is very similar to what the All 22 films will provide you. And they started showing me what the West Coast concepts were like, because I kind of understood because of the Bill Walsh era and how that was implemented. And they started to show me, basically how, based on the formation and how the safeties come up and how the linebackers fall back, is whether or not which route is going to be the most common and the most deadly. And I started to pick up on it, to the point where I could turn around and look at the gentleman that was behind me. I can't remember. I want to say his name was John. Don't quote me on it. If you're out there, your name's John, and you used to sit behind me in section 206. If I hacked your name, I apologize. But I just remember at some point I was able to turn around and go, they're going to run this play. Just based by the formation. And mind you, the way John Gruden did it back then is he would always, his presentation on the offensive side of the ball was just as convoluted as the play itself. The pre-play had more dialogue than the play itself. And that was to try and create confusion in the defense as to exactly what they were going to do. And to the point where he would actually do fake substitutions. I don't know if you guys remember that, some of you older guys, where he would have 2 or 3 guys go out on the field, 1 guy come off, and then 2 more guys come off, and then like 3 of the guys, this wasn't like they didn't know what they were doing. They knew they were purposely doing it, where they would send 3 guys out on the field, and then 2 guys would come off, and then 1 guy would exchange pre-play, and then they would go in huddle and then set up and run the play. It was magnificent how Gruden did it back then, but see, they've changed the rules since then, right? So you can only have so many people in the huddle and so many people in the formation before you get a penalty. So having said that, excuse me real quick, having a little technical difficulty with the camera. I'm going to be adjusting it as we're still talking here. Having said that, let's get into today's topic. Let's talk about today. Any of you guys in the chat, you have any questions you want me to answer, feel free. There's a bunch of names listed that be on the lookout for. I'm going to throw a couple of names out there when we get going, and just be on the lookout for it, because these are hardcore relationships with Clint Kubiak. And one of the keys to building your staff is what kind of relationships you have going into that and developing that program. And you're going to bring those guys in with you to help set up your staff. Do I foresee? Hold on, just a second. I think I got it here. Oh, all right. So just as they bring those people in with these relationships, these important relationships aren't necessarily quote unquote nepotistic friendships. Okay, so they're going to be guys that he knows he can hold accountable, and if they don't do their job, he ain't afraid to let them go. We're not going to have a Brennan Carroll situation with Clint Kubiak, because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, he'd fire his brother or his dad if he had him on his staff, because it's important for him that if he's going to hold the rein and hold the whistle, that those that follow him, they have to be held accountable too, or you're gone. Okay. And I think that is something we should be very observant of, pay attention to. Okay. As we go forward with this administration. Okay. Now, let's take a dive into it. So far, we ain't got nobody in the chat, anybody chatting. Okay. So throw those chats in there. If you got you got a question, feel free to do it. Okay. So we're going to do this real quick. Let's talk about, I was going through my slideshow presentation earlier. So let's start with this is basically the coaching relationships and the tree as it pertains to Clint Kubiak. Okay. And this is his background. He's going to come from a strong West Coast Mike Shanahan style, which is very conducive to what John Gruden ran. We all praise John Gruden for what he did, but this is going to be very similar to that. So there's going to be a mix of run, pass, run to establish the pass, or using the run to establish the passing game. Correct. What you see right now in today's NFL is we're seeing a lot of let's throw the ball to win the game. That in and of itself you're setting yourself up for failure. Okay. I had the chance and opportunity to meet Coach Madden in the parking lot of Oakland Coliseum after the 1999 Arizona Cardinals preseason game, because he would go to the home preseason games. He didn't have his television commitments during the preseason, so he would show up, and he pulled into the parking lot. He was in a gold Oldsmobile Bravado with his son. His son was driving. He gets out. We said hi to him before the game. He went in. Everybody respected Coach Madden. Nobody rushed him. It was just like he was one of us going to the game. And the same thing after the game when he came back out. It was just at the time, the parking lot was so cluttered and congested that he was doing like what we were doing. And we were just going to wait a little bit until the parking lot emptied out a little bit to come out. Well, long story short, we were able to spend about 10 minutes with them, 10, 15 minutes. And there was 4 of us, and him and his son. And we're standing there, and we offered him a bottle of water, and we offered him some of our food that we were cooking out in the parking lot. And we just had a nice conversation. And one of the conversations that I had is the question that I asked him, I said, so what do you think? What do you think about today's team? And this was in 1999. We just got Rich Gannon. We had Rich Gannon and Bobby Hoying in the quarterback room. And the quarterback room was being sorted out. And one of the things that when I asked him, he's, and this is after the Cardinals game, he said, we can't stop the run and we can't run the ball. And until we do those things, we're not going to win. Okay. And so we had just acquired Tyrone Wheatley. We still had Napoleon Kaufman on the roster, and then we brought in Zach Crockett. Okay. We didn't bring in Charlie Gardner until the 2001 season, I believe. I believe it was 2001. So one of the things when he said that, and then you start watching as the season came along, was the running game got better and better. We were going from 70, 65, 70 yards a game to where we were putting 100-yard games up every game between Nat Kaufman and Tyrone Wheatley. The problem with Nat Kaufman is he kept getting hurt, and every time John Gruden would have to call a play, he didn't. He would call a play specifically to show Kaufman, and Kaufman would be on the bench hurt, and that hurt us in a roundabout way. And so, I believe, I believe it. 99 might have been Kaufman's last year. Long story short, we get to the end of the season. We're 7-8, going into Kansas City Arrowhead Stadium, and this is Gruden's second year. And at this point, he's going to have to put up or shut up in this game, right? He puts up, we win, and the way we won, it was just such a unified team. And then that team just we just built off that team going into 2000, which took us to the AFC Championship game, in which we lost to uh, the Ravens. So getting back, I know I sidetracked a little bit. Sorry, 10 of you guys that are still in here watching this show, I appreciate it. Show your love, hit those thumbs, subscribe to my channel. Also, subscribe to my partner's channel, Donuts Duncan. Jeff, subscribe to his channel if you haven't done so already. Hit those notifications on your notification settings. Hit all. Check the bell for all. And you will get any notification that Raiders First Down sends out to you, and we'll go from there. So getting back to the Gary Kubiak, the primary influence of Gary Kubiak, as you can tell, is going to be his dad was a longtime head coach. Not only was a longtime head coach, but he was a backup quarterback in the NFL for a long time. So he had a lot of studious moments. He's bringing his expertise as a backup quarterback to the coaching side of things, and then he's mentored under one of the better offensive minds to ever show us what the West Coast offense could be and how powerful it could be. Because even the concepts today, even though you don't see a lot of under center type formations or two back with the fullback, you don't see a whole lot of that. The concepts are still there as to what they're trying to achieve. You know, with a lot of precise routes that are dictating what the defense needs to do. Short to intermediate passing concepts, ball in, ball out, and keep the chains moving. Because let's face it, when you're dealing with timing and scoring, you'll hear that a lot when I talk. Timing and scoring, that's just as important as running that scoreboard up like a pinball machine. Okay? So you keep that going, and you stick to the discipline of the West Coast offense. Even today, it's going to be just as effective as it was back in the late 80s and early 90s. So continuing. Okay. So obviously Clint comes from Gary Kubiak. That's his dad, who had head coach of the Super Bowl 50 champion with Peyton Manning as his quarterback. But we all know that Broncos defense was predicated off of a beast of a defense featuring Von Miller. And even Peyton Manning to this day will tell you that Super Bowl ring belongs to the defense and not him. So before we give kudos to Peyton Manning on the Super Bowl 50 victory, that's where it comes from, which there's not a problem with that. And you know, when we get into the Fernando Mendoza talk and what people are saying about Fernando Mendoza, there's several pieces of football that require more than just a quarterback, and that was a perfect example. A Hall of Fame quarterback that was struggling with his physical. He had physical limitations, and it was obvious. It was glaringly obvious when you watched him play, but he was still able to command a huddle. And he was still able to get the points needed to benefit his defense to produce wins. And just like right here, the foundation of Clint's philosophy just comes from his dad, which comes from Mike Shanahan. He's the origin of the modern zone run boot action system, and a lot of people are like, "Well, are we outfitted to run a zone run scheme?" I think we can. I think we can. I think we have enough athleticism with, and we can bring in, which we're going to have to bring in better offensive linemen. But that's what we're going to target as well. Are those guys that can run a zone scheme? And believe it or not, if you really pay attention to it, it helps the offensive line a little bit better to run a zone scheme. It keeps them a little bit fresher as the game goes on because they're not constantly having to lean on the same guy all the time. They're able to get, lateral or upfield a little bit more and hit their key blocks to free up the running back. At the same time, it also helps the running back as to now he has to develop his visual abilities and know where his run lanes are going to be. So it's important. Those are some key variables that we need to understand, and everybody knows it. I'm just talking about it so we know as we go forward, we're on the same sheet of page. Okay. Let's see. Clint worked with variations of the system across several teams. The wide zone, the modern zone run, the boot action system. Um, I don't think the quarterback that we're targeting in a draft is going to be much of a boot action, but he does have the athleticism to do it. So if he's able to get in the laboratory with Kubiak and focus on some of those boot action zone runs, zone and read and process type concepts that's required in a West Coast offense. I'm going to say, I think Fernando Mendoza can run a West Coast offense, even though he's in an quote unquote RPO heavy run offense in the college. Don't take away from the fact that he does have that ability. He will be able to do it. Trust me, I am fully 100% confident. The other day in one of the chats that I was in, I listed some of the characteristics, and one of the characteristics of Fernando Mendoza that I labeled was he's intelligent. The spitback that I got from the host on the show that read my text was intelligent. All he runs is an RPO. Ain't too many people playing in the NFL that got a 1400 on the SAT. Okay, with a college scholarship to Yale offered to him, goes to one of the most difficult business schools in all of college at Cal Berkeley, the Haas School of Business, gets his undergrad degree in 3 years. If that's not intelligence and that's not performance, I don't know what is. It sure the hell ain't Johnny Blow at the community college. I guarantee you that. So we can strive. Any and every take that you have about Fernando Mendoza, I can counter. And if I can't do it, my partner Donis Duncan can. And these ain't, and you can sit there and go, oh, you just no. I've watched that kid since Cal. Okay, and I watched him. I watched the breakdown the other day on another show of a really good friend of mine, and he in his open monologue of that show said, I have to step back and have a different perspective now of what I've seen watching the tape versus what I saw before. Yeah, I know the management of it, what we want of a number one pick coming out. We want him to be turnkey, ready to go. First snap, first play, first game, right? Be quite honest with you, the first year of a rookie quarterback, if you can, I'll take Jaden Daniels out of the equation and give me a quarterback that came out their rookie year and performed at an elite level to where they got their team to a championship. Jaden Daniels is an exception to it. He's probably the only one that I can think of that performed at that level. Now, you got to remember, the number one pick goes to the worst team in the NFL the prior year. So there's two schools of thought on that, and hopefully Clint has the right school of thought. Is you don't have to rush the number one pick out on the field. I know you guys are saying we should, but listen, just be cognizant. If you pick Fernando Mendoza, just be disciplined about it. And I'm hoping and I'm confident that Clint Kubiak could be one of those guys. And I'm sure he's probably looking, and the conversation has probably come up as to what type of veteran quarterback would you like to bring in to help you establish your program in which we can filter a young quarterback into and take this franchise to the next level. So now that I've spewed that, we kind of talked about it a little bit. We'll talk more about it. Let's talk about some of the shared concepts. No, we've already finished that one. All right. Offense coordinator and head coach Mike Zimmer. Great experience for him. Worked closely with Kirk Cousins. Experience calling plays, managing full offensive operation. Exposure to Sean Payton's offensive structure and game planning. And we all know Sean Payton is a micromanager. So you have to be fit and fair with him when that comes to. Used a lot of blend of West Coast timing with aggressive downfield concepts. Now, just because you run a West Coast offense doesn't mean you can't exercise the vertical game that every Raider fan cherishes. It can be. Now, what's his vertical game like? Well, a lot of people say that he doesn't have the accuracy. He doesn't have the arm strength. He does. And there's examples on that you can go back, do your research, go back and look and see he can hit a 45-yard seam route. He can dump it over a safety and get it to his receiver. He can. He showed he can do it. Now, have there been passes? You can also go on the internet and show where he's underthrown the ball in those circumstances. Okay. So, I mean, if we want to be a critique of a critique, I can take any legendary quarterback, bring him out on stage, and show you the exact same situations. But we got to be honest with ourselves, Raider Nation. At this point, it looks like we have our coach. We need a quarterback. Do we need offensive line help? Yeah, we can address that in the free agency. Just because we got the number one pick doesn't mean we don't have 9 more picks that we can't maybe turn into another 1 or 2 extra picks. Okay? Nothing says we can't take our 36 pick this year and go back a couple spots and gain an extra 3rd round pick. It's those top 100 picks that are important. Your top 50 are important. Your top 15 are your blue chips. These are the guys that should be your cornerstone franchise players. And to just arbitrarily throw your hands up in the air and say, well, we don't need to take a quarterback. We're not ready for a quarterback. We just need to trade back. I'm not opposed to trading back. I'm not. If you have a plan, have a plan. What is your plan? If your plan is to build the roster as best as you possibly can through the draft, then okay, do it. Execute the plan. Implement the plan, execute the plan. Okay? Nothing says we have to hold ourselves to that number one pick to Fernando Mendoza. Nothing. But you know, and I know, what have we been waiting for? A franchise quarterback. A guy that we can draft, develop, become a championship caliber franchise, and say, that guy is ours. We didn't get no backup quarterback off of some team to come in here and do their thing. No retread quarterbacks to come in and do their thing. Because in the long run, if that guy comes in and there's 15 variations of his jersey running around in our stadium, that's not really calling him ours. Derek Carr is still ours. He was our franchise quarterback. We let him down. He didn't let us down. We let him down. We didn't, changing coaches every 15 seconds and then expecting your quarterback to produce is not a that's not a very good formula for success. You guys know that. Why do I even have to talk about it? Why does Mitchell Rentz have to go on and talk about that? You know, with thousands and thousands of people tuning into his show to just hear the obvious. It's obvious. So what we need is a quarterback married to a coach that can just smoothly go along and day by day, week by week, game by game, put us in a position to we're proud of who we are. And that's where the pride and poise comes in. We all know there's different slogans throughout the Raiders organization, right? We got pride and poise, commitment to excellence, just win, baby, right? The flame that burns brightest is the future of the Raiders. Okay, a lot of company slogans, but if you stack them together, we have to start with pride and poise. Pride and poise is where we're gonna dictate how we go farther. All right, real quick in the chat, Donuts Duncan, my partner, my brother. Thank you for coming in. Hey, you already have access to the studio since you're a partner in the 401 Jeff, Raider Jeff. If you feel like ducking in, throwing your 2 cents in on this podcast, you're more than welcome, my friend. We still will be having Raiders Show Me Your Shield on Tuesday nights. That is starting to be a really good show. That primarily is we're trying to target fans, to bring fans in, where we have guests on the show and just kind of scope out their perspective of what, how they became a fan and what their emotions and their love and their passion for being a fan, and then also get their personal takes on the current status of the team, and what they say, and kind of pick their expertise a little bit. So also too, we got Rosetown native 707. Thank you, brother. DDR fam, here we go. Let's go. Frank Weber, of course. Always got great takes, my friend. Always got great takes. Thanks for coming in. Frank, if you got anything to chop it up about this Kubiak situation, throw it in the chat. Let's get those questions rolling, guys. This is where we start to establish ourselves. And don't be afraid to share the show with other people, man. Put it out there on X, put it whatever platform, any social media platform you have, clip the link, share it, get it out there. Just so people know that who we are. Okay? Because let's face it, there's a lot of core, different levels of fans, right? There's fair weather, then there's core, then there's hardcore, and then there's ballistic. Right? Ballistic fans. I like to keep myself in that core hardcore mentality. Where I want to be honest with myself and not overextend, because there's other aspects in life that are just as important. But like I told somebody one time, before I married her, that there's only one thing you can't take away from me, and that's my passion for the Raiders. And she understood it. And for 30 years, she's lived with it. Sometimes she's like, oh my God, it's too much. And then sometimes is what it is. That's what he likes to do. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't go hang out with the boys on the weekends. That's not me. I'm still loyal. I love my family. I love my wife. And, but I also love my Raiders too. And sometimes they're all the same. I treat them just the same. Robert Pena's in the house, man. Thank you so much for coming in, Robert Pena. We chopped it up the other day on the phone. Let's give a happy birthday salute to Mr. Robert Pena, who is now the proud owner of a '67 Chevelle. Beautiful car. Kind of got me a little jealous on that one because the 67s, honestly, is one of my most favorite Chevelles. Coach sipping Jamba Juice. I guess the other 31 walked away when you told him that. Nope, there were no other women. If you look here, the door wasn't getting beat down. Trust me, it wasn't. And besides, I just never was really that kind of guy. I, uh, yeah, same here at JP Raider. My wife had no choice but to join the Raider Nation. Same thing. And you know what? She bought into it, man. Let me tell you, she's. Sometimes we don't watch the games together, but I'll hear her upstairs watching the game, and she doesn't know the nuances of the game. She believes a tackle is holding, like that's holding. I said, no, he's the ball carrier. They could grab him and throw him on the ground, type thing. But some of it, she catches on real quick. Like some of the timing and scoring stuff, she'll look at the scoreboard, look, and she goes, "Hey, okay, they need to do this. They need to hurry up and get." If they go down and score right here, right now, that'll give them so much more time. They can get the ball back and score, make another score to either take the lead or win the game. I'm like, I don't know. She's in the game. She's grooving. Yeah, JP Raider, thanks for coming in. Once again, thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it. But let's anybody does anybody want to talk about the Kubiak stuff anymore? Just thumbs up if you want. There's some other things that I would like to talk about with Kubiak, um, and that's what kind of staff is he going to be able to bring in? You know, um, here. Well, I have here. You got to bear with me. I put together this nice presentation on what my new computer, and I do my shows on my old 2013 iMac. So and it wouldn't transfer, it wouldn't diagnose. So uh so let's take a deep dive into some of Kubiak. Obviously we got his family ties, right? And his what are some of the examples of his successful quarterback development? We've seen what he has done with Sam Darnold. Now, the Sam Darnold relationship started in San Francisco. A lot of people are mistaken that it was in Minnesota. It wasn't Minnesota. Sam Darnold and Clint Kubiak's relationship started in San Francisco. Clint Kubiak went to New Orleans. Sam Darnold went to Minnesota. When Clint Kubiak goes to Seattle, he brings in Sam Darnold because he didn't want the guy that we ended up taking so we could get the number one pick. And myself will call Geno Smith's season a success. Absolutely 100% he was successful this year. And I think Donut Stuff knows why I'm saying that. He was the ultimate, and this is my partner's quote, ultimate tank commander. Made it look so, you can call it tanking, not tanking, whatever, but whatever it was, it worked, didn't it? We got the number one pick, ladies and gentlemen. The number one pick. Yes, the ultimate tank commander. Do you think Kubiak coming in is going to want to retain Geno Smith? I don't think so. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's a no. That's an absolute no. There's going to be no Geno Smith. If it does happen, then I think it's just by proxy, and it just has to happen because our options are limited at that point. I myself would like to see Clint Kubiak go and get Mac Jones. And some of you are going to say, Mac Jones? No. Look what Mac Jones did this year in relief of Brock Purdy and under Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, Clint Kubiak. Same tree, right? Same philosophies, same coaching styles, same credentials. One has more, obviously. He's a head coach. He's been a head coach for a while, gone to the Super Bowl, multiple championship games, continuously wins as a head coach whereas the other one is just getting his feet wet, right? But it's still the same. The way they coach their quarterbacks, and mind you, these are veteran quarterbacks. Matt Jones once was a number one pick. I mean, he was a top pick in the draft for a franchise, and it just for some reason didn't work out. So I myself think that would probably be a good option. I think it would be a better option than Malik Willis because I don't think Malik. I mean, no knock on Malik Willis. I just don't think he's going to fit the type of program that we're going to be putting together. Um, which I mean, you don't want to have to run two different variations of of offense to suit because you have to curtail your offense to suit the style play of that quarterback. Um, Now the rollout, the rollout function of the West Coast offense, Malik Willis obviously he could do that. He's got the athleticism to do it, and he does throw a really nice ball on the run. But what is his other? Um, what are some of the other traits that he has that can satisfy what we're looking to get out of our quarterback? You know, I'm not saying it can't be done. I mean, you guys all know that. But I think if we look a little bit, I think Matt Jones kind of fits that mold a little bit more as a stopgap quarterback, not a franchise quarterback. Because if we draft a number one quarterback, we get us a veteran as a stopgap to come in and play a year or two to let our number one quarterback develop. And then only the coach is going to know he's going to be able to nod his head and go, okay, he's ready to take over this team and take it to the next level. All right. Looks like we got somebody else that joined us in the chat. This is Navman. Hope all's doing good and you're thawing out back there in Tennessee, Navman. Thanks for coming in. If he wants to keep Gino, we need to fire him immediately due to psychological issues. I don't think it's that he wants to keep him. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to keep Geno Smith. But he might be backed into a corner a little bit where because you don't want to go in with a rookie quarterback in AOC and that's all you got. Okay. No knock on AOC, but I don't want to go into the season with just those two. So you have to have a plan to do that, right? You have to have that plan. Because I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, if we run with Geno Smith as our primary, we're only setting ourselves back even more. And then what? We get a number one pick next year, and a lot of people are saying next year's quarterback class is going to be it's going to be a heavy loaded quarterback run at the top of the draft. But what are some of the prospects? I mean, I keep hearing Arch Manning, but Arch Manning really didn't prove anything to me until about the last 4 or 5 games of the season. Even then, it wasn't like it was. It's like, because some of you guys out there in the stat world, pull up Arch Manning's stats, pull up Fernando Mendoza's stats. And then you're going to say, well, Fernando Mendoza played 16 games. Well, really, he only played 14 games because he got yanked out of a bunch of games that were blowouts. So you kind of got to take that into consideration. That's why the comparison with some of the other quarterbacks that have come out is it's not fair. I mean, statistics are a numerical lie, and anybody will tell you that. Okay, and you can use statistics to your advantage to bring a narrative in what you're trying to present. That's why I'm not really a stat guy. I mean, I'll read stats; they're fun, and it kind of gives you a little bit. But you really got to do your homework before you start just reading a stat sheet. And go, oh, that's the guy, right? So one of the things I want to do on this show as we get closer and closer to the draft is we're going to do a little "Who am I?" Right? Who am I? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bunch of research with scouting reports, and I'll put a little thing together and I'll read it, and I want you to tell me who they are. And you'll start to see in these scouting reports it's the same as what we're looking at this year. The only thing that this year, and 805 was 100% true with that, is we don't have enough selection in the quarterback process to really make it comfortable to make that pick at number one. And I totally understand that. I'm 100% with that theory. Okay. Now, having said that, we're also Raider Nation, and what have we missed? Franchise quarterback. We've missed and we've missed and we've missed over the years of getting us a franchise quarterback. Now we're in a position we control the draft, guys. Bottom line is we control the draft, and so we can do it however the first round of that draft goes however we say we want it to go. Right now, other teams are putting their draft boards together, knowing that Fernando Mendoza is not. He's going to Vegas, you know. And I truly believe that a lot of the media is force feeding Fernando Mendoza to this franchise. They're force feeding it to us fans, our franchise, people in the building, and they're just sitting there pushing it and pushing it, pushing it as if this is going to be the guy. Well, I hope my GM and my part-time executive owner is willing to do their entire homework as to, and then have that plan. I want Fernando Mendoza. As soon as the Penn State game was over, I was like, we got to get this guy. He just had ice in his veins. Had one of the crappiest games that you could probably ever see in a top tier quarterback in college football. He was struggling big time, man. His routes were getting ducked. His timing was off. The execution of the huddle was off. There was a lot of missteps. Getting up to the line, two getting the play called. Deciphering what your audibles were going to be at that time. He was struggling. He'd be the first one to tell you he was struggling. But with 2 minutes left in the game, Penn State had to punt the ball. They kick it in the end zone. Comes out to the 20-yard line. Indiana's got the ball. 1st and 10 on the 20-yard line. First play of the game. That right tackle, I don't know what he was thinking. He down blocked when there was a guy on the outside edge that was clearly showing he was blitzing, and just let him run free and knock the hell out of Fernando Mendoza. And at that point, you're thinking, oh my God, they lost 7 yards on the first play. Nope, didn't matter. Next play, boom, out route. Pick up the 7 yards. Next play, first down. 7 of 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown on that play. Through 2 incomplete passes, one of which in the red zone that was batted and was oh shit, that was close type play. He got lucky. He absolutely got lucky. Now I hear this, and if 805 you're still here, in some of the film review that you did was outstanding, but also go back in some of that film review, because I hear a lot of this that he's overthrowing, or he's throwing high, or like that back shoulder fade that he threw in the championship game was more of a great catch than it was a good pass. Not doubting that at all. Not doubting that Becker made a hell of a catch on the sideline on his hip. Okay. But something that a lot of people don't know is those passes are actually designed to go to that location. Those are choice areas of preferred catching that the receiver wants. Go back, I believe it was the Iowa game. It might have been the Wisconsin game. I can't remember. I'm not going to put any of this stuff up on. I'm not going to do any film where I play film up on the thing, because I'm still trying to build my channel and I don't want YouTube coming after me. But you can do your own research. Go watch Iowa. Go watch Wisconsin game. Illinois was the coming out party where he played the number 8 team in the country and put the habeas whoop ass on him. But I'm going to bring this up, and right here, Nabman, I don't know if you're in my brain, picking my brain right now, but pay attention to what I'm about ready to tell you. When you guys go back and you watch these, because I'm sure you guys are going to want to watch and have a feel for yourself, is there's one game where it was a high throw. right? And it's like, see, the receiver had to go up and get that ball. And that was on him. That was the receiver that did that. Watch the receiver when he makes his break. And it was Cooper, specifically Cooper. In this, now I can't remember if it was Wisconsin or if it was Iowa, but it was one of those two games where he's running just outside the hash upfield. He presses the off man coverage, and at the top of his break, just before he hits the top of his break, he goes like this. Does like Devontae Adams. Does like that. And I rewound that, and I go, what the fuck is he doing? And I rewound it. Oh! That cancels the narrative of all these dipshits that are going out being anti-Fernando Mendoza. Then I dig into a little bit more. A couple back shoulder fades. Becker, when he's running, you'll see him. He'll put his hand behind his back and tap his butt. What does that mean? Throw it low. I'm going low. You guys probably remember in one of the college football playoff games is there was a tunnel screen, a quick hit, 3-by-1 formation. The slot receiver's back. The slot receiver takes one step back at the snap and then starts to crouch. When he starts to crouch, what does that tell Mendoza? Throw it low. Throw it. So his target is going to be from the thighs to the shins. That's where he's throwing the ball, between that receiver's thighs and shins. So all he has to do is go down low, catch it, and just lunge forward for that yard and a half to get it to the end zone. If he doesn't execute it, let's say the inside slot corner gets a jump on it. And we've seen this happen before where they jump the route, snatch it out of the air, and now you've got 99 yards the other way. You know, that's what you don't want, right? It's a hit or miss type of concept. Executed to perfection, my friend. Touchdown. And you just go, and some people are like, God, he threw that ball low. No, that's where he wanted to throw the ball. Because if his receiver doesn't catch it, nobody else is. It's going to hit the ground. Makes sense. Same with the Penn State game. The final touchdown in the back of the end zone. That was designed. That was called the crossbar route. What's that mean? I'm going to throw it at the crossbar, go up and get it. Raiders used to do that. Go back and watch the Ronald Curry catch from Kerry Collins in the snow against Denver. That was a crossbar route. Beautiful. Awesome catch. So if we want to discredit Fernando Mendoza because of the type of catches that his receivers are going to make, then I'm going to go back into Aaron Rodgers' history book and checkmark 90% of his shit. Oh, that was a receiver that did that. That's the receiver that did that. Back zone, him and Devontae Adams were the master of the back shoulder pass. Master. You know what we have on our team right now? There's this tight end named Brock Bowers. Anybody bitch and complain about the touchdown he caught last year off the back of his butt going into the end zone? Great catch, right? Nobody wants to give the quarterback any credit for that. And the reason why I won't give the quarterback much credit for that, because I don't think that was an intentional pass. I think it was just dumb luck. I might be wrong. They might have practiced that. That might have been what they were looking for on that play. But bottom line is we can if, ands, or buts all we want. Now let's talk about statistics and how people present statistics. I've seen people present statistics that Shedeur Sanders is a better quarterback than Fernando Mendoza. By far. Okay. And then you come up. He had 4,100 yards passing and more touchdowns than Fernando. All right. Yeah, he did. He played a lot of JV football teams too. I went back and looked at the schedule and you go, yeah, okay. Until he played BYU, What happened when he played BYU? He could he couldn't he couldn't do anything. Now let's also add credence to this. There's this when you present statistics, have all your facts together with it. Okay. Some people compared Fernando Mendoza to Joe Burrow. I am not. Okay. I am not. I really think Joe Burrow is that elite above and beyond what Fernando is or is going to be. But does that mean that Fernando can't be a franchise quarterback? See, we forget, we go back to 2001. Who was the best quarterback in the NFL? When you talk about just quarterback, right? I'd say Peyton Manning was. I really would. But who produced the winning football? Because he put all of it together, right? Put all of it together. And you go back and you watch the first 4 or 5 years of Tom Brady. Tom Brady was a game manager. Ooh, you call Tom Brady a game manager? You don't know ball. Go back and watch. He's winning games, throwing 190 yards passing, 225, couple 300-yard passing games in there. He didn't have an elite wide receiver in core. He had good running backs, a very good defense, awesome special teams. Okay. You put those all together, what do you have? Championship football. Ain't that what we want, Raiders? Do you really think our championship teams of years past was based off of a golden arm? No. But if you had to do it all over again, would you have drafted Jim Plunkett #1 in the draft as a Raiders team instead of waiting for him to get his ass kicked in San Francisco and New England? I would have. If we had the #1 pick in 1971, I'd have taken Jim Plunkett. That's what we did with Kenny Stabler. We took him. We took Kenny Stabler high in the draft. Okay, we took him high in the draft. He was on the taxi squad for the first 3 years of his career. If any of you anybody remembers the taxi squad, okay, taxi squad is a lot like the practice squad, except for they were protected players. Other teams couldn't come and pick you off the taxi squad, and then there was limitations on what you could and couldn't do on the taxi squad. Seems like Nabman's the only one that wants to chat in here. I know I got more friends than just Nabman, but you know what? He's a good friend. So if that's all I have, fuck, I'm still winning. I bet Fernando is extremely excited about the thought of having Bowers and Mayer tied in, something he did not have much in college. Yeah. Bowers is a weapon, guys. He's an elite weapon, right? And a compliment, we don't need to go out and get, per se, a quote unquote #1 diva / do all wide receiver. We just need a receiver that we can line up. We know that we can throw the ball to 8 to 10 times a game. Throw Bowers 12 to 15 times a game. The guy getting 8 to 10 is going to pick. He's going to pick up 5 or 6 really good plays for us, get us some good yards and some scores. Right? Maybe it's he might be a #2 on another team, but he's #1 on ours. Like a Jacoby, I think Jacoby Myers was a perfect fit. It's just we didn't have the quarterback or the offensive line that could get that offense to really do what it was capable of doing. And so, yeah, so it's just Bowers is most definitely he's a weapon. Yeah, I'll be quite honest with you. I think he's the face of our franchise more so than anybody else. I do not like to call college players and NFL players, but if I were to do, I'd most of the measurables and mental game most resembles Andrew Luck. That's where the intelligence comes in. Okay, and I get questioned on his intelligence. Do your homework. Okay, I was already done with when the analysis and evaluation on on a certain podcast was being done, and then you start listening. It's like, bro, you haven't watched all the games. Okay, I haven't watched all of Mendoza, but the ones that I did watch live And I have a wife that can vouch for me because she watched some of those with us because it was right about early October. She goes, because the funny part about it is, well, a lot of people don't know is my brother-in-law is named Fernando Mendoza. He's not a quarterback, you know. He owns a landscaping company, but it was just coincidental. We were just laughing about it, and it just when I started to watch a lot more college football because we were getting a lot of Indiana games here on FS1, so it was like, man, that's great. Yeah, we took Eldridge Dickey before Stabler in that draft, and be quite honest with you, Al Davis, Kenny Stabler didn't fit the mold of Al Davis per se. He didn't think Kenny Stabler had a strong enough arm to suit his vertical passing desires. Hence, that's why we had a lot of Daryl LaMonica, a lot of Jay Schrader, Kerry Collins, Jeff George, uh, those guys. That's why those were that vertical passing quarterbacks. Not a whole lot of. I mean, we had a lot of success with Daryl LaMonica. I mean, don't get me wrong, but as far as actually being able to be a lethal assault weapon of dropping 90-yard bomb. Oh, Jamarcus Russell, 70 yards standing on his knees. Right? you know? So, and let me curtail a little bit of this of what you guys are thinking with it. Now that I mentioned Jamarcus Russell, a lot of people are saying if I don't want to take Fernando Mendoza because we're putting ourselves similar to Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell was basically one of those guys that was better than everybody on the field his entire life until he got to the National Football League. Okay, and that's from a physical standpoint, not a mental. The mental standpoint is way lower because at LSU, what he was asked to do at LSU was simple. It was real simple, and the rest of the guys stepped up. And mind you, in that Sugar Bowl, I watched that Sugar Bowl, and I was like, we got to get this guy. He's throwing it all over the field and he's hitting players on the run. Touchdowns are just you're just watching the stat sheet and the scoreboard just ding 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 just like a slot machine. And I was super excited when we got him, you know, and coming out of his pro days and all that, and the word was coming out that some of these scouts were saying best pro day I've ever seen in my life was his. Yeah. As soon as the pro day was over, he was in the drive-through of Wendy's getting him some cheeseburgers and then driving over to Rite Aid and getting him some NyQuil and some 7 Up and having him a good old time. And that all that promethazone stuff, that stuff was real. I had a friend of mine that was a sergeant in Hayward PD in the narcotics unit, and even he said that he goes, dude, this is when we had him. We were still trying to sign him. He come over to the house. And he goes, dude. He goes, what's up with this Jamarcus Russell? I go, what do you mean? He goes, bro, he keeps popping up on our radar. And I go, well, yeah, he's a good quarterback. No. The narco division's over in the Bay Area. He was popping up on the radar. I was like, shit, here we go. Another freaking marijuana bitch. And sure enough, that's what we got. Waste of a number 1 draft pick. This ain't happening with Fernando Mendoza. I don't know if you guys seen, heard, or paid attention to what type of person he is. His father alone is a pediatric physician. One of the best well-known pediatric physicians in Florida. So when you start talking about that, the bloodlines run down. And the scope of who he is, character, is what we need. Leadership, right? Got some leadership in him. He has the physical attributes. He just took historically the worst college football program of all time to a national championship. Now you say took, right? Did he do it himself? No. The coaching, the running game, all that. Those are factors too. I get it. But to say that Oh, he just relied on his run game, and that there's an NFL quarterback right now that's at home that should be in the Super Bowl because they have more talent and have the capability, but he's at home right now. His coach got fired. It's Josh Allen. Why did his coach get fired? Well, they took the ball out of Cook's hand. They did it this year. They did it last year. I was on the live party with 401 Raider Jeff, and I'm like, dude, they need to run the ball. They're up, or the score was. It's like a half or one possession game, and the possession is you score a touchdown, you go up. You're up by 2 points. Run the ball. It's not illegal. They haven't banned, face mask and targeting. Those are penalties. Horse collar, those are penalties. Handing the ball off to a running back in the backfield that can get you 4 to 6 yards just by like that and not doing it, you're setting yourself up for failure. The only time you should be bombing it all over the field and throwing it all over and mind you, Buffalo doesn't have an elite wide receiver core. They have 2 really good tight ends. Knox and Kincaid, I would say Knox and Kincaid are right up there with Bowers and Merritt. I would. And I don't want to. I'm sure I'm going to get homered on that by some fellow Raider fans, but you got to watch Kincaid. Those are really good tight ends. Okay, do I think they can? Either one of them can do what Bowers does. Bowers got some special traits when it comes to his route running, how his catching radius. You know, but Kincaid is one of those guys. He just gets open. But yet Josh Allen doesn't. He doesn't have that that wide receiver core that he could just lean on and dice you up down the field over and over and over again, like Joe Burrow has. Right? What does Joe Burrow have? Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Oh no, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. The Jefferson was at LSU, which is another thing that it just mind boggles me how these people, now once again, I'm not comparing Fernando Mendoza to Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is a much more polished quarterback overall from head to toe, from physical standpoint to his actually application of his fundamentals is way better than Fernando Mendoza. I'm not comparing the two. Okay. Let's get that straight right now, Raider Nation. That's not what I'm doing. But also adding the fact is when you start to look at the, 5,800 yards, 60 touchdowns, and they lost 3 games. Yeah, they were in the SEC. They had to play the core Alabama, what we don't see today. That's Nick Saban's Alabama. Had to play that Nick Saban Alabama. Lost to Ole Miss, who was number 20 in the nation at the time. It happens. That's the SEC for you. The SEC is just like the AFC West. Yeah, it's a slobber knocker conference, and he who rises to the top is the best team in college football. But those are going to change now because the SEC is looking. Hey, we've been doing NIL for 40 years. Now all of a sudden everybody gets to do it. Well, shit, that just leveled the playing field, didn't it? So now your Indianas get a jump on board. You get some of that Oregon money, that Phil Knight money up in Oregon. They're going to be a contender for years to come. Yeah, Dalton Knox, that Knox kid, another one that's those are really good. Andrews and Likely, yes, Andrews and Likely, that's another one. Yeah, and Navman, once again, I don't know what you're doing if you hack my computer or got into my brain or something, but we're kind of talking the same language here. They elevated Joe Brady, who was the play caller, and fired McDermott, but at the same time, McDermott said, "Coach, he might be telling Brady, I pass the ball, you do this, do that." And they use Josh Allen as part of their run game. I don't like that. I don't care what type of quarterback you have. I don't like it. It's not. It wasn't good for Tim Tebow, and it's not going to be good for Josh Allen. He's going to those those injuries are going to start to creep up. Thank you, Steve Young, for the information. So you got to be disciplined in how you utilize your coach or your quarterback. Excuse me. You know, same with the RPO concepts. The RPO concepts really are dangerous in the NFL because you expose your quarterback outside during that it's a three-part process: run, pass, or option run. So you're going to have the option of, do I hand it to the running back and let him go? Do I keep the ball? And that read is going to be based off of what the defensive end does. Now, if the defensive end crashes, you keep the ball. Now your option is, do I keep the ball and throw it? Which we're starting to see in the NFL, that one of the failures is because in the NFL, the linemen don't get that 3 yard leeway. It's basically a yard to half a yard. So you're getting a lot of illegal man downfield when people run those RPO options because they're having to use an internal clock to decide when it's time to go downfield. And they don't know. Did my running back get the ball or did my quarterback have the ball? They don't know. Right? So that's why the RPOs and the pros have a little bit more of a failure rate than they do in college. And another thing, too, in college versus the pros when it comes to the RPOs, and this might help you out, Raider Nation, is in college, they're limited to 20 hours of preparation, 20 hours of team function and preparation. Now, physical exercise such as weightlifting and isolated film, they can do, but it has to be without the coaches. They can add strength and conditioning. That those hours don't count, but they only get a total of 20 hours. So to implement an extensive West Coast offense into a college program is way more difficult than implementing a 30 play or a 15 play. Basically, it's a 5 play. It's 5 plays with 3 formations with 2 more different personnel selections. So you're going to have 30 variations of one play of your plays. So that's another reason why in the RPOs is very common in the pros than it is in college than it is the pros. The pros on average RPOs only ran 8% of the time, with the largest being Kansas City, who runs it almost 20%. 20% of their playbooks contain an RPO or a variation of the RPO. So that's that. I mean, we could talk more and discuss more of that. Yes, Cuban dropped $20 million into the IU program for 2026 at the Post Natty Gala in Bloomington. Some people did not realize that Cuban. Yes. I knew that from a while back with Cuban. His biggest influence in buying the Dallas Mavericks was that of Bobby Knight, because of his connections to the. And see, back then, he can only donate certain amounts of money to the booster club that would pay for certain things, such as like building cost and stuff like that. But now that money can hit the pockets of your players, it changes. It changes. I mean, it brings those type of people into the forefront. Whereas, like I said earlier, the SEC was already running NIL. They just never got caught. Right? So usually the people got caught that started giving money to the family members and not to the player. And they're trying to shuffle it through we'll give Uncle Joe $100,000 and hopefully he gives it to Reggie Bush. Well, no, Uncle Joe kept the money. Now you got a big problem. Cam Newton was one of those guys that, his dad went and was negotiating finances with colleges, with Florida and Auburn and Alabama and things like that. So what happened back then was illegal. What happening now is out of control. So you start letting the crazy people run the insane asylum. It's going to get stupid real fast. So I myself think there should be some parameters to the NIL. One of the suggestions that I had was if coming out of high school you accept an NIL contract, you sign that NIL contract. That NIL contract is binding. Period. There's no arbitration. If you uh, breach that contract, you are no longer eligible to play college football for the next 2 years. Period. The end. So colleges, you get universities when you sign a kid to an NIL contract. As soon as that wet signature is done, you make a facsimile of it, send it straight to the NCAA so they have a copy of it. You keep a copy for your records, and you send the original with the wet signature straight to the NCAA that goes into the file to prove that that person has a contract with certain paid monies and he has to adhere to that contract. Okay. Now you have this open portal thing, right? Where when the portal opens up, players can pick and choose where, kind of like a adjunct free agency type thing that we would have in the NFL. All right. When you start to control the NIL money, the portal will take care of itself. Then you'll start to see your portal is going to be a lot of your non NIL kids that, maybe got $1,000 or $5,000 for expenses to come to the university, but they had to produce out on the field. And now the contract is, maybe a 1 or 2 year deal for that university, and they're at a D2 or FCS school. Now they want to go play big boy football to better themselves because they know they have the aptitude and the ability to take it to the NFL. Is now they petition the NCAA. NCAA says, yes, you are good to go because we're reading your contract here. You have fulfilled your contract. You may enter the portal. Right? Now NCAA is giving you now you can go into the portal and universities can come and bid on your services as needed. Simple as that. And I think if a 5-star kid comes out of college and he signs an NIL deal, it's a minimum of 3 years he's committed to that contract. So he cannot do a portal exchange until his 4th or 5th year, if granted. And your 5th year can only be granted based on your academics. So you have to have some academics to support a 5th year. Most guys, if they're super good, they ain't going to need a 5th year. Their 4th year, by the time they're done with their 3rd year, they're ready to go to college anyways, or ready to go to the pros anyways, right? Because the NFL only requires you to be out of high school for a minimum of 3 years. So they've satisfied that portion of going to the next level. But those are just some of the things, and like Navman's saying, the problem with all this stuff in college football is there's no guardrails. NIL money to players should all be incentive based. Nah, I'm not really basing on incentive. I wouldn't mind the academic part of it, but the sports part of it, you start to go down a slippery slope, and then you start to see teams withhold players because they're about ready to hit benchmarks, so the colleges don't have to pay them. Let's say, for example, kid signs a $500,000 NIL to go to a particular college, and he starts out the starting quarterback, but he only gets 250,000 of that if he starts all the games, right? Non-injury, excluding injury, but let's say 6 games into it, he ain't cutting a mustard, and he gets benched for the 4-star recruit that outperforms him, right? Something similar to Ole Miss, but Ole Miss was, when Austin Simmons was healthy to come back, it's like, hey, we got this train rolling. We can't make no changes now, right? That's where that would come in. Now, if you want to base on, you go and you in your major, you're 3.2 to 3.5, and you're an athlete, get a little extra cash, right? Because academic students get that stuff. If you go into an honors program at a university and you meet certain criteria and you maintain a certain GPA and following your curriculums and your what the outline is for your undergraduate, they get little checks, not much. They might get $1,000 or $1,500, depending on what university or whatnot, because those are all incentive basis, and I ain't got a problem with that. But as far as actually making the sports incentive based, now you're starting to talk about cutting kids off at the knee because of that. And that kid that got cut off at the knee didn't deserve it because he didn't do anything to deserve it. You know. So, all right, we're off on that soapbox. Anybody else got anything? Bueller, Bueller, Bueller. Anybody? Anybody out there excited that we may have Kubiak as our head coach? All signs are pointing in a direction that it's we look like we might have systems a go in the next 7 days. Anybody excited about that? So let's talk about some of the people that maybe maybe come in and help Clint Kubiak. Uh, Bear with me. I'm trying to get into my um, other computer, see if I can pull that PDF up real quick that I put together. Uh, okay. And we talked about Kubiak's, coaching tree, but he has his own coaching tree as well. So let's talk about some of. There's one guy that kind of intrigues me a little bit that has had some pretty good success as a quarterback coach in the NFL, and that's Josh McCown is the quarterback coach of Minnesota, who has a relationship with Clint Kubiak. They have a really strong bond. But I'm going to name some of these guys, and you guys need to go do your own research because it's obviously where we're going with this, right? This will help you more or less understand what it takes to put that staff together. Okay. Now, potential offense assistants. I'm going to give you some names and what their title is. Okay, you got John Benton, offensive line coach for the Seattle Seahawks. You got Rick Dennison, senior assistant, and anybody knows Rick Dennison, he is part of the Gary Kubiak, Mike Shanahan tree as well. That's where those relationships come from. It's kind of amazing how everything just kind of circles back sometimes with these guys, And if you really wanted to do the tree, I can basically go 23andMe or ancestry.com on you folks and list everything going back to Bill Walsh, and you just see that tree. Mike Holmgren, uh, which also has John Gruden, who was on George Seifert's staff, who was running Bill Walsh's offense, and yada yada yada, and so on and so forth. So that ultimately, Bill Walsh is the godfather of the West Coast, which he got the concepts from Paul Brown, and put together probably one of the best recipes, homegrown recipes that you can ever have. Now, does everybody have all of his secrets? You guys have had those grandmothers that had, recipes in their cookbooks. They ain't sharing those recipes, right? Well, Bill Walsh took some of those recipes with him, but for the most part, he built a lenient legacy with a lot of these guys that are now passing those traits on to their kids, i.e., Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, uh, Clay Kubiak, so on and so forth. All right, so we got John Benton, offensive line coach for the Seattle Seahawks. He followed Kubiak to Seattle from New Orleans. Here's the catch: he's higher up in the coaching pecking order on Seattle in Seattle, and so would he have the opportunity to have maybe an assistant head coach tag placed on him, which gives him a little bit more money than what he would make being just an offensive line coach? That's something Seattle can do, which would dissuade him. But once they do that, that opens the door for several other people that are going to be on this list. We just talked about Rick Dennison, longtime coach in the NFL, senior assistant offensive coordinator under Clint Kubiak and the Seattle regime. Andrew Janico, quarterbacks coach. I don't want to hack his name, man. I've read it like 55 times, and we just need to bear with me on it because I'm going to get to the guy that I know that I think is going to be our key to turn this damn thing around. And this guy is going to be he's going to be very important. I think he comes to us. If he doesn't, I'd be shocked. Okay. And next one is Keith Williams, pass game specialist, currently with the New Orleans Saints. He was hired by Kubiak in 2024 and could be poached for a promotion or lateral move. Being a office assistant with the pass game specialist, lateral moves. Because I think those type of coaches are on a year-to-year contract. They're not necessarily 2 and 3 year contracts. So I don't think it would be difficult to poach him. It might cost us some draft compensation to do so, but you're looking at 6th and 7th round picks for something like that. So it's not, I'll take a 7th round pick and put it on the jukebox and listen to Michael Jackson. So they're not worth that much money. The next guy, this is the guy that I'm going to drive home. And this is the guy that has done a lot of the studious work. He's young. It's Justin Outen, run game specialist, a versatile offensive coach currently in Seattle who has previous offensive coordinating experience with the Denver Broncos. His true asset is he has basically copies of the key to that wide zone run scheme that is so dangerous. It's the same run scheme that pisses us off every time we play against a Kyle Shanahan or Mike Shanahan type team, right? A lot of lateral movement between the line and the running back, and then selective holes depending on how well they are able to unbalance the field and hit that crease. Because remember, Vince Lombardi said you want to get a seal here and a seal here and run it in the alley. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get 3-on-2 matchups, three linemen or 2 linemen and a tight end on 2 defensive backs or 1 defensive back and 1 linebacker. Those are your advantages. All right, let's talk about potential defensive coordinators. I hope you guys are taking notes. I can't get this to come up on the screen because, like I said, it's on the old. I did it on the new computer, and my old computer that I'm working with right now doesn't have the software to support it. I can't crack it. It becomes a zip file, and it won't even open. It kind of pisses me off. So I think I'm going to probably break down and just go buy me a new computer for myself. Let my wife keep the other one. All right. Now we're on to potential defensive coordinators. Carl Scott. Watch this name, fellas. Watch this name. I really, truly think this is going to be he could be our next defensive coordinator. Currently, the Seahawks defensive backs coach, highly regarded in the league, was a defensive coordinator candidate with the Raiders during previous searches. Did you guys catch that? So if Clint Kubiak goes into a staff preparation and presents to John Spytek goes, "Hey, what do you got for coaches?" And he goes, "What do you think about Carl Scott?" I think that is going to be, can you get him? Yes, I can. Go get him. Next guy is going to be Kurt Olivadotti, linebackers coach, a veteran Seahawks assistant who has been cited as a potential defensive coordinator candidate under Kubiak. This is another guy that I think would be really powerful and do a really good job. The next guy is a guy that just got done coaching. He's a current defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, but he remains under contract with Denver. And he has a real strong relationship with Clint Kubiak, Gary Kubiak, so on and so forth. But I don't know. It'd be cool to get him just to piss off Sean Payton because I hate that guy. But I don't think we can. It would cost us. Well, first and foremost, I don't even think we could talk to him because he is a defensive coordinator, and they can block that move as a lateral move. So we're not even going to go there. There are some of Sean Payton's coaching tree that might blend well with what we're trying to accomplish, but I don't think we're going to tap too much into the Sean Payton. I myself think Clint's going to really bargain for a lot of his New Orleans and Minnesota and some of his San Francisco contacts. And this is why I like Clint Kubiak and I like Chris Shula, is because they have this thing that I hear the comparison. They have a Rolodex, this thing that sits on their desk with a bunch of phone numbers, addresses, names on it. Their Rolodexes are filled with quality coaches. Donuts Duncan, thanks, brother. Evero, I think Evero is only a head coach. Yeah, just like Evero is locked up with the Panthers through 2027 as a DC. We would have to. It would have to be a advancement, not a lateral, to get him. Let's see what Nabman here. If Kubiak has made a commitment to the Raiders, we may say some folks getting hired. I don't know if he's going to spend much time worrying about that right now because he's got a Super Bowl to coach. And I think getting this off his plate this weekend helps him. And then once here's a key component to it all. The results of the results of the Super Bowl and how he personally feels about his performance in that Super Bowl is also going to play a factor in the final decision. Okay. Now remember, we just have a pinky swear. We just got a pinky handshake. And you guys know a lot of times those don't pan out too. People can piss backwards on you real quick when that happens. Until the signature is dried on the piece of paper and NFL acknowledges that signature, then we have to wait. But I am excited because now we don't have a bunch of white smoke coming out of the chimney. You guys that are Catholic out there and understand what that means. When they go to select a pope, all the cardinals gather inside the Sistine Chapel. It's closed off to the outside. No communication, no cell phone, no telephone, no written communication, none of that. It is just them in there balancing the pros and cons with the selected few to determine who the next pope is. Once they determine who the pope is, boom, white smoke through the chimney. If they decide none of the candidates are worthwhile, they got to start over, then it's black smoke. So far, we got a little. I think the fire's being lit. I think there's a little bit of white smoke, but until the day after the Super Bowl, we got to be a little cognizant. It's not. The last thing I want to do is say, well, it's kind of par for the course being a Raider fan. Here we go again. Right? It's like I say every year in training camp. Last year was great. First week or two, this is great. No drama. Everything is good. Woo! Pump the brakes. Yeah. Somebody's foot ain't healing and he's tickling people in the shower and we got to get rid of him. Then we bring in an old receiver who decides all of a sudden after a week that, I don't want to play for you guys after all. Is that more of a media thing? But yeah, but you got to admit, man, it just seems like that's all we are now is just media bait and not really that franchise that people can look at us and respect us. um, uh, what must you accomplish in order to have a tree? I've always wanted to ask others questions. I do not think McVeigh has enough to have his own named tree. No, he does. He does. He's got a lot of. There's you got the thing of it is that the Sean McVay tree and the Kyle Shanahan tree actually goes to the Mike Shanahan Washington Redskins, and then Kyle Shanahan going to Atlanta. And you start to see those same names and same faces over and over and over and over again. Mike McDaniel, things like that over and over again. It just Sean McVay does have a coaching tree. It is there's absolutely a coaching tree. It's just whether or not how far it goes, because you got to understand. We talked about the Bill Walsh coaching tree, right? Bill Walsh, George Seifert, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, John Gruden, right? John Gruden, Mike Tomlin, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. See what I'm saying? So it just those that thing just keeps going and going and going. And in a roundabout way, Pete Carroll was part of that tree because he was a defensive coordinator under George Seifert in San Francisco, right? Coached with John Gruden at the University of Pacific, along with Hugh Jackson, and so they all blend together at some point. It's just a matter of who, what, when, where. Some people have a lot of success, and some people don't. There are not a whole lot of Cliff Kingsbury trees, are there? No. The Harbaughs, you could say the Harbaughs more or less come from their dad. You know, um, I wouldn't necessarily link them to a specific NFL tree. Huh? He always was under contract to. So was Kingsbury, but he left the Commanders. Did Kingsbury leave or did he get? Here's the thing with Cliff Kingsbury, and you can go back and you can look. Is that guy always starts out hot, right? He comes in, very innovative, gets a team. He did it with Arizona. He did it, wherever Texas Tech, wherever he's coached. They start out hot. Watch the Commanders with Jaden Daniels as a rookie. You guys saw it, right? And then all of a sudden it goes, he crashes. We don't want that. We want a guy that's consistent year in and year out, right? Somebody who's able to adapt, improvise, and overcome, have solutions. You can sit back and complain, but have solution. You identify the problem. What's the solution? Kingsbury doesn't have that. He just identifies problems, but he doesn't have the solutions to remedy the problem. Uh, exactly. All attached to Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan. The Mike Shanahan coaching tree. It comes right off of Bill Walsh. I mean, it literally is like you take Bill Walsh, you plant him, the seeds fall down on the ground, and before you know it, you have a whole orchard. But right next to Bill Walsh is going to be that Mike Shanahan. It's just Mike Shanahan. Until he paired up with John Elway, was limited in exactly what he can do. You got to remember, who got Mike Shanahan fired? Does anybody know? Anybody? Jamarcus Russell beat the Denver Broncos and got him fired. That was an accident. That wasn't. The Bill Walsh tree surely is alive. No, most definitely well into the NFL. Even though the aesthetics of it is different, the core of it is still the same recipe. It's still the same basic ingredients in that recipe, but it's not. because a Bill Walsh is under center, fullback, tailback, offset eye, putting your having your fullback open up the presentation, see where if we're going to be in cover two man, whatever, are they going to be in a 46? Are they going to be in a, is the will linebacker going to go with him on man coverage and using that tight end, and the tight end was special. Tom Rathman was special in that West Coast offense with the passing game. John Ritchie was special in the John Gruden passing scheme. I know college isn't producing fullbacks, so it makes it difficult for an NFL team to go get them a fullback. Not a whole lot of fullbacks. You got to kind of go and get you maybe a tight end hybrid type player that you can maybe mold into a fullback. But other than that, yeah. So now, man, you're saying that Kingsbury was a mutual parting of ways. That could be interpreted in two ways. We'll save grace, give you your money, walk out the door, or we're going to fire you, hold your money, and you got to prove that you deserve it. That's what it comes down to. But either way, somebody was leaving. Somebody. It was a divorce. They got divorced. Whether or not they got a divorce as friends, they remain friends, or there's restraining orders being drawn out, but they still got a divorce. Yeah, I highly doubt the Panthers are going to let Evero go either. Not on a lateral move. You're absolutely stupid to let somebody go out on, especially. Well, yeah, I would say even if your coordinator didn't have the type of year that you wanted him to have, but you're still going to keep him because you see that there's bits and pieces that to look forward to, then I would not let lateral moves happen. West Coast offense with the new RPO sprinkled in. That's exactly what Andy Reid does, folks. It's exactly what Andy Reid does. And all that backwards yo-yo, what do they call it? Instead of doing a lateral motion, they have the wide receiver come in motion, but it comes backwards, and then he's behind the running back when the ball snapped, and then he bounces out. That's aesthetics. That doesn't change what the concept of the play is going to be. You're still going to have a mesh. You're still going to have a top and you're going to have a layered route tree concept with an emphasis on maybe the tight end. But the RPO is it's a quick 3-part, one play, 3-part. So the running back has one job. The quarterback has the ball, and there's going to be either one or two wide receivers on that half of the field because it does cut the field down. You're not going to have the full panoramic set to you because you're actually trying to attack. The purpose of the RPO is to attack the outside edge of that defense and make them stay disciplined, right? Which in turn exposes your quarterback because a lot of times you're leaving that defensive end edge rusher. You're not blocking him. You're making him decide. It's kind of a basketball theory of man coverage in basketball as to whether you're going to as a defender you want to as the offensive player your movement, whether it's a free throw extended or a wheel or top of the key, coming around the top of the key. I'm using basketball analogy. A lot of you guys probably don't know basketball, but it does the same thing. That's what RPOs do. The guy's going to be, it's a one-on-one matchup, but I got the running back I can give it to. So if you come at me, if I see you step forward at me, I'm giving it to the running back. If I see you step down, I'm pulling it. Now you're out of the play. You got to chase me, right? So you're gonna have to chase me. I'm going to the sideline. I'm going field side to the wide side of the field, and I'm running that way, somewhat lateral with the line of scrimmage. I want to gain ground, but I don't want to lose ground going upfield. And then I'm going to have a quick strike to an out on my outside receiver, or I'm going to play him into maybe a double move, um, pump fake, give it a pump fake on the outside, see if maybe the corner will bite. My receiver can redirect, go upfield. But it's a useful play, but it's one of those that if you drink too much of it, you're going to get drunk on it. So that you're best just to kind of keep the RPOs down in the pros because these guys are too fast and they can diagnose that play way too fast. A lot faster than what they do in college. That's why it's so effective in college. It's harder to diagnose it for them because it's just, let's face it, NFL players got a little more savvy in them. Rathman and Dwight Clark, Kyle been trying to mimic it with Christian McCaffrey and Juszczyk. Yes. Yeah. And again, I hate that spelling too. But it's right a roundabout way. That's Charlie Garner and Tyrone Wheatley paired with what's his name? I just said his name. We had him at Stanford. Um, Not Rathman, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Number 40. That was our fullback. He was good. I mean, out of the backfield. I mean, he wasn't. We weren't giving him very many carries, but he was good. Blocked real well. Panthers defense is better than they should have been. I do not disagree. Yeah, there were some pluses and minuses to the Panthers, and I think a lot of it had to do with whether or not they were able to gain traction on defense. Because some defense takes like it's kind of like they got to get into a rhythm. You know, I know Patrick Graham the first 2 or 3 years. A lot of people gave him credit for who he was, but really, in all honesty, it took a couple drives on, a couple series on defense for them to kind of get the rhythm, and then you can kind of see, okay, we're going to be able to attack a little bit more with these guys the way we're playing, But here comes, I'm Pete Carroll. We're going to run cover three. That's it. No offense or buts about it. Speaking of Kingsbury, it is eerily quiet around that dude right now. He has burned too many bridges to be considered. Yeah, as much as people want to give us grief about Raiders constantly overturning coaches, let's talk about coaches overturning franchises. There comes a point in time where a franchise is going to go, wait a second. That's the predicament Chip Kelly's in right now. He left UCLA, didn't have to leave. They weren't firing him. There was no mutual parting of the ways at UCLA. But he didn't have to leave to go to Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator, right? He could have stayed right where he was at UCLA, but he chose to go to Ohio State offensive coordinator. And you think about it, the reason for it makes totally sense. It makes perfect sense. Like, I'm better suited as an offensive coordinator. And here we come. And we go, $6 million. Yeah. Oh, who's not going to pass up $6 million to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL? Who? Whether his intent was to come to the Raiders and be all that in a bag of chips as an offensive coordinator, which I don't think he is. I think Chip Kelly ran a course once he was done in Oregon. His San Francisco 40. Now, he did have some success in Philadelphia, and he had some success in San Francisco with his offenses. But in Philadelphia, he had Shady McCoy, bro. Really? Probably one of the best running backs I've ever seen play. From just a gifted, talented running back. LaShawn McCoy was all that in a bag of chips. And so, Crockett was there too. Crockett wasn't necessarily a fullback, though. Crockett was our short yard specialist. He was the one that was because Crockett when Crockett was in Indianapolis, he was actually a true tailback, and he came to us, and he was still a true tailback with us, not necessarily a fullback. But Marcus Allen was a fullback too, right? Not that we liked it, but he was a fullback too. So you got to be able to. That's one of the things, guys that could, they can change. Nab man blowing up the chat. Thank you, brother. The under center pass attempt, play action pass was probably created to perfection by Don Coryell and Sid Gilman. I think Coryell took San Diego a long way with that new wrinkle in offense. Yes and no. One of the things is, and you can argue this till you're blue in the face, is a play action pass does not work unless you have the threat of an advanced play run game. So the play action pass with how Sid Gilman presented it was actually very good. I mean, his philosophy of the play action pass was perfect. I'm not knocking that, but what eventually caught up to him with Eric Coryell was that teams later on, as the season would go on, would realize they're not a Muncie is not really that big of a threat to run anymore. So we'll just back it up a little bit, play press. We'll just play a more of a bump and run press man and make them throw it. So it's like, oh crap, I just faked the handoff and that didn't work. What do I do now? And it's the same kind. It's the same theory as what a RPO is. Play action pass is the same thing, except for play action pass is just that. You call a play action pass. There's no option to run the ball. You're just faking to run the ball. That's it. But until you establish, there we go, man, John Ritchie. I'm sorry, man. Thanks. And I said his name before, and then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, I forget his name. Hummers, RVS. Thanks for coming in. Hey, if you haven't already like and subscribe to this channel, I'm going to grow this channel. Me and Duncan's been going at it for a little while. I created this studio as not necessarily as my studio, but if for some reason if Donuts wants to do a solo object with him, we're going to use this studio, and then Show Me Your Shield will be a combined effort. To where we do that together. So it just gives us a little bit more tools so we can get out with you guys and party like it's 1999. Nabman again. Let's see, I think might land it. Yeah, that's an option with Kingsbury going to, because I think Harbaugh does kind of like his offensive philosophy. It was brought to the NFL by Coryell, is what most may. Yes. Yeah, the play action pass was. Well, you got to look at it two ways. Pre AFL, the passing game was basically like a hemorrhoid. It only came around ever so often. It got itchy and scratchy, and you had to put medicine on to cure it. And then when the AFL came around, it was like, oh, wait a second. What? You had NFL team. You literally had NFL teams sitting around watching AFL games going, wow. Yeah, you can throw the ball. It's not illegal. But you still got to be able to run the ball. Right? Alec M., thanks for joining us, my friend. Salute to you. Let me see if I can hook you up for just. Raiders. Oh yeah, there we go. Nice. Alec M., good news on Kubiak. The good news is, I don't know if you've been following it or how far you are into it, but from what I understand, based on the meetings over the weekend between Kubiak and our front office, were good, positive, and it looks as if though we have some type of commitment with him. I know the Cardinals went ahead and made a hire today on their head coaching front and solidified that. So it's just us and Kubiak out on the dance floor, and it's just a matter of what song that DJ is going to play to make sweet music. What do you think? Kind of a good analogy, huh? Navman's. Hey, Navman, are you writing that down? You got your pen and paper out? You writing that one down? Uh, uh, so anybody in here that doesn't know Navman 93 Navman, he has his own channel. Nav, if you want to go ahead and put that in, remind me. I will hook you up with a mod. I'll get you a wrench. Um, so whenever you come in here, you can do some modding for me. I know I got Donuts. Well, Donuts Dunk is my partner in crime, so he's obviously, and I think I'm not Bueno. I'm not Bueno's a mod. You got to make him a mod because he's the only one that can do a broadcast from his refrigerator. Freaking cool, man. Raider Shield family. There you go. Raider Shield family. Um, Go through that. Yeah, throw your link in, Nav man, if you want. Um, yeah, once again, I'm not bueno. There you are, my friend. Um, Been in here 2 hours now, running solo. It is 3:45 Pacific Standard Time. I'm sure it's a little later for you guys that are all frozen on the East Coast. We've been thinking about you. I'm sure. I don't know. Tennessee's got to be thawing out by now. But any of you guys that come in here and want to collab on an episode or of some kind, I am not opposed to it. I want debate and discussion just as much as anybody else. Um, I like it when the chat is involved between two people. Um, there's some people out there in the content world that I would love to sit down and have a chat with and just go, yeah, well, because in all honesty, if we take any of this shit personal, then you have no business even paying attention to it, right? If you take it that personal as to what another Raider fan has to say from his perspective, because I don't. I mean, um, it was mentioned the other day on one channel. It was like, "Oh my God, that was brutal," and then the next day, that content creator says the exact same thing, and he doesn't get scolded like the other one. That wasn't the case. There was a different perspective. There really was a different perspective. And that's all I ask. If you come at me with stats, come at me with stats. Okay, cool. Right on. But also too, you're leaving out statistics that show a broader picture. When you just give me yardage and touchdowns to interceptions, that doesn't necessarily um, paint the whole picture. It doesn't. The perfect example is, and I'll tell you right now, Fernando Mendoza was only asked to throw 30 times twice this year. Okay? Shador Sanders only threw less than 30 times in a game twice his senior year. Now, mind you, he had Travis Hunter, who won the Heisman Trophy, to throw the ball to. Lesser competition, minus the BYU game, you know. So, and you look at the gauntlet that Fernando went through: Penn State, Oregon twice, Ohio State, Alabama, Miami. Illinois was number 8 in the nation at the time, and they put the habeas whoop ass on them. They throttled Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin might not be the same team they once were, but it's still Wisconsin, right? Right. Now, they did have some gimme games. They beat Old Dominion, FCS school. I get it. And they only beat them by 2 touchdowns. People are going, oh, they beat them by 2. Old Dominion is pretty damn good. They're right there with the James Madisons. So we can't overlook that when it comes to Old Dominion. Okay. Yeah, they put the whoop ass on Kennesaw State. Okay, I get it. But you look at the totality, you go first, look at the teams that they played, at the times that they played them, the locations that they played them. Look at the scores, and then you go and you look at the columns, okay? And then you start to put it together and you go, well, and then you go watch the games and it's like, Oh my God, Mendoza's running down the field. Why is he running with the 15 touchdown lead? Wait, wrong Mendoza. That was his brother that was running down the field. They'd already pulled him out of the game. So don't get hung up. Stats are fine. It makes fantasy football fun. I love fantasy football, but you gotta see it for yourself. Watch it. You can get a good indication just by watching. And I know sometimes people don't watch and say they watch because I just found that out the other day with a guest I had when telling me that Indiana had to run the ball at the very end to get in scoring position when and then I was like, okay, that's not true, but okay. But he has to rely on his run. If it ain't for his run game, and it ain't okay. Well, I get that. I get that. I get that. I get that. Okay. But do you think New England's in the Super Bowl because just because of Drake May, who only had 85 yards passing in the championship game, AFC Championship? Oh, but the weather was fine in the first half. Even Geno Smith went, shit, I could throw for 85 yards in the first half. You know what I mean? So it does. I mean, you if ands or buts, they all drive us nuts. But let's face it, look at the whole totality of it, right? Now I'm going to tell you what I don't like about Fernando Mendoza. Okay, I don't like his pocket discipline. It's horrible, but it's coachable. Okay. Same with Derek Carr. Did not like Derek Carr's pocket presence. I'll never forget Bosa going up to the mic after the game going, we didn't even have to sack him. He sacked himself. All we had to do was grunt and get a little bit of pressure, and we got sacks. Didn't even have to work for it. I don't even think his offensive line knew what he was doing. You guys saw it. There's a couple times he curled up. Like, dude, you still had like 2 seconds to throw the. What's going on here? But yes, Mendoza does not have good pocket. His pocket discipline. And when I say pocket discipline, is he bending the pocket? Is he establishing to where the edges are coming up field? Your 2 and 3 techniques are getting stymied. Now he can, 1001, 1002. Now step up. You're sliding forward and you're planting, sliding forward, plant, slide forward, plant, and you're surveying the field. 805 specifically said that one of the things that he has a problem with, and I do too, but these are coachable, right? It's not his fault that that's the way they play the offense because they did. You can knock that out of him real quick. Is being able to read a defense. Okay, now you get him in the laboratory with a good coach, with his intellect. I truly think he could read it. He could dissect pre and post snap because he does pre. He's really good at pre and post snap with the RPO. He can he can he can he can align himself and execute properly. Now you get him into an NFL laboratory with his acumen, his intelligence. I think he can do well. One of the things that I did doing all my research with quarterbacks and whatnot, and pulling up scouting reports and whatnot, is I pulled up a scouting report of a particular quarterback. All the same characteristics, except for was dependent on the RPO system quarterback. That's what he was. That's what he was. That's Justin Herbert when he came out of Oregon, right? Now, was he picked number one? No. But if he was in this draft this year by himself at the top, knowing what we know now versus, would he be the number one pick? The answer is absolutely hell yeah. You don't think Jim Harbaugh wouldn't draft him number one? If Jim Harbaugh came into the NFL and Herbert was Fernando Mendoza, do you think Jim Harbaugh would draft him with the number one pick? I think so. Now, Jim Harbaugh also has a different philosophy on how he runs his drafts. He feels that the first round is the trenches, absolutely above and beyond. Either I'm going to get the most absolute offensive alignment or I'm going to get the most absolute defense alignment. Period. End. Ain't nothing wrong with that either, Skipper. Um, Jeff is in the building right now and he's listening. I don't know if he is or not. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Except for, in our case, we haven't had a franchise quarterback. The Chargers have had franchise quarterbacks. They've had Drew Brees. They've had Phillip Rivers. They've had franchise quarterbacks. We haven't that we can call our own. And I think that's why, in a roundabout way, we're locking ourselves into that. I'm guilty of it. Sorry, I'm guilty of it. Maybe I watched too much of Fernando Mendoza this year. Maybe I should have done like everybody else, wait till the college football championship and do the same thing. Yeah. No, I'm not sold on him. I don't think he has what it takes. But you go back, you watch ice in his veins. Gets Ohio State in the college football playoffs. Oregon, the first Oregon game, because the second Oregon game, you guys are going to turn around and go, well, his defense got a pick six, and he got this, and he got that. Okay. The first one. The first Oregon game, he threw a pick six. Threw a pick six early in the game. Didn't phase him. He just kept firing away. Kept it coming. Like he says, my best play is my next play. So I like his attitude. I like his composition. Has nothing. He is nowhere near comparative to Jamarcus Russell. So get that. People need to stop that comparison. He's not Joe Burrow. Stop that comparison. Okay. But do we need that? We need trenches. We need defensive linemen. We're going to have $126 million in salary cap. And you say, well, I thought we had 110. Did you guys see how much the salary cap just went up? From 279 to 307? Holy scamoly. That means getting rid of Geno Smith is that much easier. What do you think? I'm starting to plug along a little bit too much here. I hope you guys had a good time joining me. If not, throw some comments. Get into the comment section. Once this goes and post, get in the comment section. All right. Check out my hashtags. Subscribe, like, share the show. I know Navman, he threw a super chat out there on somebody's show the other day. Dude, go see his show. I like Navman's show. I was one of his first customers on his show. So, yeah, we've got more people coming in the chat. We're up to 16 people watching the show at this point. We could do better than that, folks. We could do better, but let's get after it in the chat. Let's see here. I think, oh boy, no. None of these O linemen look franchise changers, look just like the QB position. Might as well take a chance on a QB. Yeah, there's a lot of valuable offensive linemen coming out, though. I was disappointed in some of the guys in the Senior Bowl, but the kid from Iowa, that Ducker, he was square every rep. He was probably the only one that had perfect reps throughout as an offensive lineman. So If need be, I'll wait for Sanjeet to put his show together, and I'll be like, yeah, okay, well, I watched it because I know the left tackle from Miami. He's gonna have a hard time getting drafted. Big, massive human being, a lot of potential. Oh, the kid from Arizona State. INR. I ain't even. It starts with an IH. That kid was. He was pretty. That dude was. Everything was. He always had control. Great punch. He didn't overextend himself. Wasn't leaning. Man, that's the kid that was a basketball player. Now playing offensive line because his basketball coach says, "Hey, you should go try the football thing out," and he did. And Arizona State, man, let me tell you. And his coach was a Fresno State coach that went to Arizona and brought him there from Los Angeles. And let me tell you, man, it's gonna be good. He is gonna be good, especially for as young as he is. He's a top 50, top 40, top 50 pick. I tell you what, if he's there at pick number 33 and we don't, or pick 36 and we don't trade back, he better be on our roster. Either him or Slaughter, who's a true center from Florida. There's some other centers that are out there that are really, really good. I just prefer Slaughter because I think Slaughter really combines well with JPJ as far as their physical acumen, and those two are just like you could just tell that they'd be fun to have at a bar, breaking up fights. Um, could be as much as 133 million once the 1 year contracts are disposed of on cap. Yes, yes. So, if anybody knows what day the um, league starts, let me know. But that's usually where the final numbers will be atoned. 619 Yak now good hire for the Raiders. I think Kubiak is going. Yes, yes. I think it's a really good hire, um, and we discussed this over time. Is he has so many other things than just what he's capable of doing, and those are his contacts. I mean, some of the coaches that he has under his wing, and these are young and upcomer. I mean, these are guys that could be in the building 4 6 years with him, you know, and establish us as a perennial. That's what we want, right? We want perennial. Let's get to perennial. Because we all know it starts with pride and poise. Then comes commitment to excellence to just win, baby. But we got to get to pride and poise first. Glad I found your channel, subbed and liked. Thanks, Hummer RV. Appreciate it. Um, also, two Hummers. If you're still in the chat, there's another guy, 805 Severe, Chris Protect the Shield. Those guys, their show on Wednesday, Real Talk Raider Nation. Great show. Go over, like, subscribe. They're getting big time, man. Those guys, it's getting to the point I actually want 805's autograph and a poster. Because I mean, I got a lot of autographs. I got tons of autographs on my pennants over me. Got like 6 autographs on each one of those, and um, posters and stuff. But man, haven't. The only thing is, 805 doesn't have a rookie card because he never played like one. He was always champ. I love 805. He's a great dude, and you know why? Because he got his yard work done today. Listen and still listen to us. Good thing is I am not doing my yard work right now until this fog and all this stuff calms down because it's just a mud fest out there in the flower beds right now. Let's see, 619. Yeah, now what do you think the Raiders should do with the number 1 pick this year? Don't waste it. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. Don't waste it. If you think Fernando Mendoza is the guy, go get him. Just take him. Nobody else can take him from you. He's yours if you want him. But if you think, hey, you know what? I got New York that's offering me 2 1s, a 2 and a 3, plus a player. It's kind of hard to pass up, but I want their number 1 next year. Okay. We can swap this year. We'll go from 1 to 2 and give us your 16 this year. Give us your 1 next year. And then give us a 2 and a 3 this year, or your 2. I want your 2 this year too. Your 1 next year and your 2 this year, and your number 2 pick, your number 16 pick, and your number 33 pick this year. No questions asked. Your number 1 pick next year, no questions asked. It's going to be the exact same as what Chicago and Carolina did 2 years ago with the Caleb Williams, Bryce Young. That flipped into Caleb Williams because Carolina wanted Bryce Young, went up and got him. They got their guy. Not doubting that. And it might turn out to be a really smart decision. I think Bryce Young performed very well this year. But they went 1-13 the next year after they gave up that first pick. So they not only did they suck, but they didn't even get the first pick. It went straight to Chicago and said, "Thank you very much. We'll take Caleb Williams." I want that. I want that. Okay. I mean, and I love, like I said, I love. If we don't take Fernando Mendoza, I'm still going to root for the kid. Nothing says I can't. There would have been 10 sacks against Miami's left tackle if the whistle wasn't blown multiple times. Yeah. Um, Jack Kenna, he was also dealt out under Kubiak. Hummers, great takes, by the way. Hummers, really like. Um, Also, put in your chat. I'm kind of getting the impression you're not actually a Raider fan per se, but oh no, 619 Yak now. Never mind. But I think you are a Raider fan. My bad. My bad. RO line. I got your chat confused with Yak now. 619 Yak now. Apologize. RO line. Miller is good, but he's trending with the injury, so we'll leave it at that. JPJ is solid. Meredith. I want the 2022-2023 Meredith, not the 2025 Meredith. But there was still some good things. It wasn't too bad. There was a couple games he just got destroyed, and it was embarrassing. But there were some games that wasn't too bad. A lot of it was he wasn't getting his head in the right position. He wasn't getting his hips turned, especially on some of those counter plays. It just like I'd like to see get those hips turned a little bit quicker to wall off that defensive tackle because that's what's costing us those breakaway runs was Genty at the 1 and 2 yard mark of the play. But we do need some help and depth. Absolutely, I'll be quite honest with you. There are tons of backup offensive linemen in the NFL that could start on our team right now. That we could go get that are backups on other teams that can start on our team and make a difference and probably play at a Pro Bowl level. They're stuck behind a guy that's just that much better than them. You know, here's some of the teams you need to look at. Look at the Buffalo. Look at Buffalo's offensive line and their backups. Look at Detroit's offensive line and their backup. This is where your pro player scout's going to be important to get these things done. Go look at those. Okay, March 11th is the start of the new league year, so that's when all the numbers will be deciphered. Expired contracts will be expired. Current contracts will go into roster mode. Of course, your roster dates will change because some of them have 5-day windows and 10-day windows that teams put in there. They don't necessarily make it the March 11th or the first day. It's usually 3-5 days after where the roster bonuses will hit. Gives the teams a little bit of wiggle room, which kind of could be detrimental too. Let's not forget the Kubiak name is consistent with winning and Super Bowls. Yes, Gary Kubiak has participated. He's got a lot of Super Bowl rings, whether it's a backup quarterback, assistant coach, head coach, so on and so forth. So yeah, the leg, the DNA is absolutely perfect. Let's not forget the Kubiak name. Let's see. I think I already showed that one. Yeah, I've been watching them too. Uh, let's see. I'll jump ahead a little bit here. Raider fan since 3 years old. 1974, first time we played Cowboys. My dad was a Cowboys fan. Now my 25-year-old son is a Giants fan. Yeah, yeah. So we're right about in the same generation. Mine was 1979 ish. I mean, I was born a Raider fan. My dad was a huge Daryl Monica fan. Just absolutely love the guy, and would always talk about the Mad Bomber this, George Blanda this, Mad Bomber this, and Kenny Stabler. He liked Kenny Stabler, and in the 1979, 1978, 1979, I started to kind of catch wind of it, and my first real um, memory that is still ingrained in my head to this day was the Kenny Stabler trade for Dan Pastorini. It was Kenny Stabler, Dave Casper for Dan Pastorini and Kenny King, right? And I think we also threw Jack Tatum into. I don't think Jack Tatum was part of the trade. I think Jack Tatum was more of we just let him go to the Oilers. Um, but uh, but I remember when that trade happened, and everybody was gloating about this Dan Pastorini could throw it. He was a prototypical Al Davis type of quarterback, can just sling it. You know, 70 yards sitting on his knees, standing on one knee. Type of quarterback. But what we didn't know was he didn't know how to operate behind a true offensive line. You know, so we still had the Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, Henry Lawrence, uh, Mickey Marvin, Dave Dalby in place at the time, and he didn't. I don't think he jived well with it, the way we ran our offense. So he gets hurt. He was 2-3 as a starting quarterback, which at that point we hadn't seen that since the AFL days, starting 2-3. You know, so he starts out 2-3, and then here comes Jim Plunkett. I remember my dad saying, "Oh God, we got to put Plunkett in us." And he comes in and he does pretty good, and then he's not like really. He's still not doing much, but he was doing just enough to where the rest of the team could pick up the slack and win the games. And then he started making plays, And then that 1980, that with that run that year in 80-81, the game that I remember the most was the Houston Oilers game. Now I remember the Cleveland Browns game because I had to sneak into my mom and dad's bedroom and turn the TV on in their bedroom and keep the volume down. And I sat on the other side of the bed so they couldn't see me because my mom would get pissed if she found out I was in there watching a football game. And the Red Right 88 play happened, and I start cheering. It's like, what are you doing in my bedroom watching this game? Well, you guys are watching movies. I don't want to watch movies. I want to watch football. I'd be curious if Tossie gets a bit better in how to play the game. It could be the next Blindside movie. Let's not sink a whole lot into it because we got Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers that are draft picks, investments that are going to need more of that juice, some more of the oil, lubricant, however you want to say it, than what he gets. So when it comes to coaching and time, we got to give it to those guys. They deserve it. They were draft picks. Yeah, Navman in 1971. If anybody knows, Navman actually went to high school with Jesus, and so just look in the yearbook and you'll see it. So, just kidding. 1984 was my first real understanding of the game at 13 years of age. Yeah, I wasn't like but I knew who I can decipher what a touchdown was and a first down and a punt, a field goal. I had all the basics down, because I was in the first grade, second grade, which was right about the time I was able to out on the playground. We would actually take football out, and play football out on the playground back then. Time to be a redneck and make Sierra Nevada beer, but chicken. Why would you use Sierra Nevada for beer butt chicken? Just use a cheap here. It doesn't take much. It's mostly salt, pepper, and garlic that you add to it. Nah, my social security number is 81. My birth certificate is etched on a stone tablet. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, but anyways, hey, I'm gonna wrap this up. 2.5 hours. It's plenty. Probably a little bit more than what my wife would actually let me do. But this is the new Raiders Pride and Poise podcast, courtesy of 401 underscore Raider underscore Jeff Productions, powered by StreamYard as our internet, how we stream to you. I am Raiders First Downs. You can call me Jason if you want. That's okay. And then my partner, Donuts Duncan, that he joins me on Tuesday nights, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, where we have the Show Me Your Shield podcast. And then on Show Me Your Shield is we want to bring in Raider fans and talk about Raider fandom in particular. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank all you guys that have been here, 16 strong. Okay? 16 strong. And Jack Kenna, thanks for coming in anyways, by the way, Jack Kenna. Once again, don't be a hoe. Share the show. I'm Raiders First Downs. To all you guys that joined us, salute.
Cold open, counted out. Yeah, we heard the talk. Cold nights and long losses, still we walk. Scoreboard hurt, but the heart stayed real. Still wear the black, still flash the shield. From Oakland roots to Vegas dust, pain in the season, but we still trust. They say it's over, I say move on, but Raider pride don't ever gone. Show me your shield, hold it high, don't bend. Show me your shield, ride it out to the end. Win or lose, yeah, we still reveal Raider Nation. Show me your shield.